For 45 years, Phil McAdam has fished the waters of Melbourne's Port Phillip Bay for sardines, also known as pilchards.
Never done anything any different, and I wouldn't know how to do anything any different, you know. From the age that, well, from way before 13, the age of 13, you know, I fished with the old man from when I was 6 or 8, and never worked another day's work or another job in my life. If this machine ain't on the boat, well, you don't go.
Yeah. For an old veteran like you, this must feel like cheating.
It was very hard to get used to in the early days, yeah. Very hard to understand, but once you get to understand them and know how to use them, it makes fishing a hell of a lot easier.
The technology may have changed, but the fishery is much the same as it was when Phil McAdam was fishing with his father. The nets are set just minutes out from Australia's second largest city. With his deckhand of almost 30 years, Carl Spicer, and daughters Claire and Kat, they supply about 160 tonnes of pilchards a year for the food and bait markets. But as of April the 1st, they're being forced to shut their business down. Before the 2014 Victorian election, thousands of recreational fishers marched and signed petitions calling for a ban on all net fishing in Port Phillip Bay. Both Labor and the Coalition listened. About 40 commercial net fishers were offered $27 million in buyouts to stop net fishing in the bay. Phil McAdam chose to keep fishing for as long as he could and will lose 50% of the compensation buyout because he did not accept it in 2016.
I said to me crew and me workers 6 years ago, I said, I'm not going to take this offer. Your payout will be another 6 years of work. That's all I can offer you. You know, because I've lost money by not taking the payout. It's not about the money. I don't want their money. I just want to go to work. You know, and that's what the crew wants to do. You know, that resource out there belongs to the Victorian public. They're the ones that are going to miss out.
Ironically, a policy designed to favour recreational fishers will deprive them of Melbourne's only source of fresh local bait. Phil McAdam supplies about 80 tonnes a year. The government says there'll be no shortage. A sardine business at Lakes Entrance will make up any shortfall.
It is a huge resource, but we, for many reasons, struggle to get Lakes Entrance pilchards. They're not available on the open wholesale market for bait and tackle shops.
David Kramer is a director of the influential Future Fish Foundation, which pushed the previous Fisheries Minister hard for net bans and other pro-recreational policies.
It's been a big year, hasn't it? It has been a big year. I've learned a lot about fishing, I can tell you.
Yeah. Tonight we've got the to-do list, the Jala list, if you like.
He now admits it was a mistake to target the Port Phillip Bay sardine fishery. He says bait from Lakes Entrance and interstate is not as fresh and supplies are unreliable.
There's nothing better than a local product, and when you buy a Port Phillip Bay pilchard in a bait and tackle shop, it's probably only been out of the water for a week. There's no getting out of the buyout. There's no getting out of the 1st of April deadline. However, I will be speaking on behalf of the Future Fish Foundation to both major political parties leading into the Victorian government election later on this year, and I'll be asking them to resurrect a pilchard fishery in Port Phillip Bay, because there is a resource. The style of netting isn't environmentally damaging.
At the Melbourne Seafood Centre, they trade about $200 million worth of local and imported produce every year. Last year, 100 tonnes of Port Phillip Bay sardines were sold, compared to just 8 tonnes from elsewhere. How long have you been buying the Port Phillip Bay sardines?
The last 35 years.
So what will you do after April the 1st?
I don't know. That's a big question. That's a very big question. Because we get very big demand on our sardines. It's a beautiful fish. People ask for it. And then what's going to happen? I don't know.
The government says there's enough sardines being caught in Lake's entrance to supply.
They're not
Melbourne.
the same. They're not the same. You cannot replace these sardines with the Lake Centre sardines. They're not the same.
The market's chairman, Andy McLaughlin, says the net ban policy in Port Phillip Bay has already pushed prices higher for fresh local seafood.
The concern is these decisions could make local seafood largely unaffordable. If you ask the average Victorian in the street, there's no doubt they've got it wrong. It's gone way too far. People don't have access to fresh local seafood. It's right on their doorstep. Instead, they're appeasing the recreational fishermen, which may be maximum 1 or 2% of the population that are really avid recreational fishermen that go more than once a year sort of thing.
The Victorian government says its net ban will deliver 600 tonnes of additional fish for recreational fishers to reel in. But the bay will continue as an important resource for the commercial supply of seafood. 8 net fishers have been offered line and hook licences for snapper and are negotiating with Victorian fisheries on what other species they'll be able to target.
The species that the recreational fishermen don't want them to catch, they probably, at this stage, the fisheries notice says they probably won't get any access to that at all, which is quite disappointing for the Victorian public. It's not looking that great, to be honest with you, at the moment. The limits on the bycatch other than snapper, which is the quoted fishery, are making it, a barely viable fishery, which is a bit disappointing because it may mean that it's not worth fishermen fishing.
The Victorian Fisheries Minister Melissa Horne declined to be interviewed. A spokesman said the government had invested $71 million since 2014 in building recreational fishing stocks. Efforts were being made to support workers affected by the closures.
I don't think they've even spoken to a deckhand. Yeah, the government's done nothing for us. Holden, Ford, Toyota employees, how much did the government pay them? Nothing for us. You know, it's disgusting.
Are you likely to look for another job in fishing?
Probably not in fishing. With my little one, like the work hours, I have to rely on other people to look after him, so unfortunately, it's just not an option.
Sadly, her almost 4-year-old son Noah won't get the chance to be the 4th generation macadam to follow the family into the business.
You know, he loves the fishing scene, you know, and yeah, that'll be very hard. Very hard.
Pretty emotional.
Yeah, very.
How do you reckon your last night out at sea will be?
A lot of people have said, oh, we're going to come for the last night and celebrate, you know, have a few beers and all the rest of it. I can't see anything to celebrate.